Hey everybody, it's Andrew Martin coming to you with the midweek message. I hope your weeks have been going well so far. My week's been great. It's a little chilly here today in Seattle, so I'm in my warm, cozy apartment and creating this message for you from the comfort of my warm, toasty bed. And I wanted to continue on this topic of surrender. If you haven't watched my video that I posted on Monday entitled Surrender, I invite you to do that now because that will give you a little bit of context around this topic and this idea of surrender. And you can also go to my blog and check out the posting titled Surrender, the written posting, the message from the lighted ones that I posted a couple of days ago. But surrender is a subject and a topic that seems to be really in the air right now. A lot of my friends that I've been talking to are dealing with this concept, and we've been talking about this subject. Some of my family members are dealing with it. You know, I'm continuing to embrace the concept of surrender as I'm moving into this world of self-employment in a couple of weeks. But you know, I wanted to share a personal story with you because I think it's one thing for me to, you know, share these ideas and concepts and these, you know, spiritual notions or teachings with you. And I hope that they've been helpful and useful, but I think it's another one, you know, another aspect of it if I can share a personal anecdote or how it's worked for me personally in my life. And in 2011, I was living in San Francisco. I was working for a modeling agency at the time. I was an agent, and the modeling agency had decided to close their San Francisco office. And it was a surprise. No one was expecting what was, you know, that it was going to happen. It was pretty much a shock. And I was fairly content in my job there. I liked what I was doing. You know, I had had some success there and it was fun. And, you know, my history as a makeup artist had really allowed me a different level of insight into the industry. And I was really enjoying myself. So, you know, the closing of the office came as a big surprise. And, you know, basically immediately phone calls started happening and emails, you know, started happening. And everyone's trying to figure out where they're going to go and what they're going to do. And I had gotten a call from someone in the LA office. We had an office, this agency had an office in LA as well. And I had gotten a call from the LA office, and they basically said, you know, are you interested in coming down to LA and working for us here? And my initial response immediately was no. I just knew, I didn't say it, but I knew in my heart immediately that no, LA was not the place for me and that was not the move for me. But I let my ego take over and I started to go into fear, and the ego telling me, well, you have to do this, you have to have a job, what are you going to do? You know, if you don't take this job, you're going to be without a job, and then you're going to be unemployed, and then you're going to be homeless, and it's, you know, the monkey mind just goes crazy and starts whirling out of control with, you know, the future tripping. And I thought about it. I said, you know, let me think on it. Let me get back to you. I called a couple of friends. You know, basically no one was giving me an answer that could justify me, you know, ignoring what my instinct was telling me. And I was just looking all over for some way and some reason to justify making this move that my heart had been telling me was not the right move. And basically I talked myself into it. I basically convinced myself, you know, through letting the ego run the show, that the fears were true, that the worst case scenario was going to happen, that I was going to end up on the street, that if I didn't take this job and I had to do it. So I said, you know what, I'm going to do it, I'm going to give it a shot, and I justified it by saying, you know, I've never been to LA before, you know, I'd been, but I've never lived in LA before. It's a new city, you know, it's a new opportunity, I might as well give it a shot, I have nothing to lose, let's just do it. So I had sort of talked myself, I think, into the best possible state of mind that I could be, knowing in my heart and in my soul that I was going against really what my higher self and my guidance was telling me. But I did it. Got down to LA, found an apartment, you know, fast forward about 4 months into my time there. This was May-ish of 2012, and I was not happy. I was increasingly unhappy in LA. Things were just getting worse and worse and heavier, and I just wasn't feeling happy there. I didn't know what I was doing. Things at work weren't going well. But on the outside, I was still maintaining this illusion of, no, everything's fine, I'm great, I love it here, I have a great apartment, I have a great job, yes, it's fantastic, life is wonderful, blah, blah, blah. And I was just doing everything that I could to sustain this illusion that I was happy and that things were going well. And then one day, I was in my bathroom. I had been decided that I was going to paint my apartment. I mean, I was finding all sorts of projects to distract me from having to really listen to what was going on internally. But I was in my bathroom. I was painting the wall. I was just about ready to finish the bathroom, and out of nowhere, I heard a voice as clear as day, absolutely unmistakably. A voice said, "You do realize that as soon as you finish painting this apartment, it's going to be time to leave, don't you?" And I kind of looked around and I went out into the, looked out into the alley, looked over my shoulder, put the paintbrush down, slowly backed out of the bathroom. And I didn't know what. I mean, I knew what the voice was, but I didn't want to admit that, wow, this is my higher self, or this is the voice of God, or this is an angel, this is some, loving, benevolent being, some source of infinite intelligence basically telling me, your time here is not going to be that much longer. And it shook me. It woke me up. It completely rattled my cage, because here it was, this was not the internal stillness, that tiny little silent voice inside of me that was speaking to me. This was a voice that I heard from outside of me, that came from above, that was as unmistakable and as clear as day, and I knew it like I knew my name, that I had just heard this voice speaking directly to me. And I just was at a loss for what to do. I had no idea what I was going to do. Here I was, 4 months into my lease. I had just signed a year lease. I had just put down a deposit. I didn't have any savings. I didn't have any idea of what else I was going to do. I was completely and absolutely without a plan and without a clue. And the next 2 days I was miserable, because here I was, I had gotten all the way down here. I had listened to my ego. I had let my ego decide and talk me into making this move that I knew that I didn't want to make in the first place. Things were just getting more and more uncomfortable and unhappy for me in LA, and I just wasn't having it down there, and I didn't know what to do. And one morning I just woke up, and I just knew without a doubt that it was time for me to start planning my departure from LA. I didn't know what it was going to look like. I didn't know what was going to happen, and I didn't know what was going to be waiting for me on the other side of that decision. I knew that I just had to make that decision. So I went to work the next day. I had been having some problems with my boss at work. We didn't really see eye to eye. Most of it really was just because I was so unhappy. And I told her, you know what, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. I don't know what I want to do, but this isn't it, and we need to figure out a way for me to leave. So I went home that night, and I looked myself in the mirror, and I said, okay, I promise that whatever I do next is going to be for me. I promise that I am going to surrender to the knowing and the voice inside of me that is telling me, you gotta leave LA, go back to Seattle, you'll figure out what you're gonna do next, just make the leap and commit to going, and promise yourself that this is what you're gonna do and everything will be fine. And I did. The next day I went to work, the announcement was made, I left my job and I came home, and I had 3 weeks to get out of my apartment, because I had told my landlord, this is the deal. She said, fine, I'll let you out of your lease. That's not a big deal. She said, these are your options. You can either give me the 3 weeks notice and we'll give you your deposit back, or you can hang on and hope that someone else will rent it. But if we don't rent it out from underneath you, then you're going to have to pay the next month. So I just said, you know what? I'm all in. I'm giving my notice, start showing my apartment, I want my deposit back, let's call it done. I put some ads on Craigslist to sell some of my furniture and some of my belongings, and I didn't have a plan, I didn't have a clue. All I knew is that I was going back to Seattle and that I was going to find a way to settle. Meanwhile, I had emailed some friends in Seattle, letting them know that this was my plan, that I was coming back, and lo and behold, the next thing I knew, things just started falling into place. A friend of a friend worked at a company. They were hiring. I went up to Seattle. I had a job interview. I didn't think I was going to get the job. I didn't think that it was a job I was qualified for, but I said, sure, why not? It ended up being the job that I ended up getting. I had a friend who lived in an apartment building who I'd known for years. He said that there was an apartment available in his building that they were renting out, to people that already lived in the building. They were taking referrals before they were going to list it. And I kid you not, 3 weeks to the day from when I left my job in LA and decided that I was coming back to Seattle, I had a job, I had an apartment, and I was up here and I was settled. Now, I am not here telling you that you should just go and run and jump off the cliff like I did. Everyone's experience is going to be unique, but the point of this story is that when we surrender, when we trust, when we take the leap of faith, when we take the first step off that cliff, you know, there's that saying, when you take the step off the cliff, you'll either be given something to stand on or you'll be given wings to fly, and I'm telling you, I was given all of that. It is still amazing to me to this day that things just lined up for me so quickly the way that they did. It was unbelievable, it was miraculous, it was spectacular, and I literally had 2 cents in the bank when I left LA. I had no clue what was going to happen when I gave my notice at my job in Los Angeles, and it just, by the grace of the universe and by trusting in infinite intelligence and my higher self and living through my heart and surrendering to that, it all unfolded for me. It was amazing. It was miraculous. And here I am, almost 2 years later, and I am in a place that I am so much happier, I am so much freer, I am so much more in tune with who I am, and I'm creating the life that I want for myself. I love my life. I wake up every day happy. I sail through my day, and those moments when I have a moment of, you know, being very human and being in resistance and, you know, choosing a negative emotion or choosing a lower vibration, that's fine. Then I just acknowledge that in this moment I'm not feeling too great, and I find a way to either make myself feel better or distract myself, and then in 5 minutes I've forgotten that I was feeling bad in the first place. So this is a story I just wanted to share with you to let you know that I have firsthand experience with practicing the art of surrender. And I can tell you that when you trust, when you take the leap, when you make the step in the direction of where your heart is leading you, it will always lead you in a beautiful direction. So that's my bit for today. Surrender Part 2, my personal story on what happened to me when I finally surrendered to that inner voice, stopped resisting the infinite intelligence and the unconditional love that was available to me, stopped resisting the flow of abundance and prosperity and ease and joy and love that could come to me if I just opened my arms, said, okay, fine, I surrender. Bring it on, let's go. So I would love for you to share your stories with me. If you have a story in your life of how surrender has worked for you in a positive way, or if you're at a point where you're about ready to take that leap and follow your heart, I would love to hear from you. Go to my website, go to my Facebook page, get in touch, let me know, and I would love to hear. So I hope the rest of your week goes well. Surrender, surrender, surrender. That is my message for you today. Thanks for watching always. I wish you well, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.